Okay, welcome back to the False Light Podcast. So, tonight we're diving into something I feel like more people need to be paying attention to: the rising hostility toward Jerusalem. It's not just politics, it's prophetic. And if you've been in the Word, you know Scripture's been warning about this for a long time. So I've got Donnie Discerned with me tonight. Most of you probably follow him on X. He's one of those rare voices cutting through the noise on both sides, mainstream and the so-called truth movement. He's not afraid to say the hard stuff, and I feel like that's exactly what we need right now. So we're going to break it all down: prophecy, deception, conspiracy, and how it all ties into this spiritual war that's unfolding right in front of us. So let's get into it. Donnie, so let's start with the big picture. Why do you think the world is increasingly turning against Jerusalem right now? I mean, what's really driving this global sentiment?
That's a great question, and I want to say thanks again for having me on the show. And yeah, so at the surface level of a lot of this, most people look at the politics, right? They'll say, well, Israel's government is corrupt, or it's because of Gaza, or, the Zionists control the world. But if that were the whole story, why has the world been turning against Jerusalem for thousands of years, right? There's something deeper going on, and Scripture tells us exactly what it is, right? In Zechariah 12, God says, I will make Jerusalem a cup of staggering to all the surrounding peoples. On that day, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will surely hurt themselves. So if you think about it, Jerusalem becomes a burden, right? It becomes a problem, something the world wants to get rid of. So the question becomes why, right? And it's because Jerusalem represents God's covenant. It represents his authority, his Messiah, his kingdom, right? And the human heart in its fallen state doesn't want that, right? It wants liberation, but on its own terms. It wants justice, but without submission. And I think that all this hostility that we're seeing isn't new. It's really like Cain and Abel all over again, right? Yeah,
I agree with that.
absolutely. It's a man resenting the one whom God chooses to move, right, and trying to kill it. And I think where it gets crazy is, the same people who are exposing the New World Order right now, the truthers, the red-pilled influencers, the New Agers, they're right that something's wrong, but because they've rejected the God of the Bible, they end up doing the same thing every generation does, which is they rage against Zion, right? They see Jerusalem as the source of global evil, right? So, they'll see Christ's return as, the final battle. And they're right in a way, right? So, that's a lot of different things. That's Psalm 2, right? That's, a couple different things. Zechariah 12, I'm sure we'll get into all the scriptures.
Oh, yeah, Psalms 2. Isn't that the one where the nations are raging against the Lord and his
Yep.
anointed?
The kings of the earth set themselves against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us, right? Which there's tons of typology on this too, which we'll get into later. But yeah, it's a lot bigger than Israel as a state and all of the political and cultural things, right? There's deeper spiritual roots and a spiritual war happening underneath that surface. And it's all about what Jerusalem represents in God's plan, right? And that's what the enemy is trying to stop.
Yeah, that's a good point, because this hatred for the Jews is ancient. I mean, you can go as far back as Esther, where Haman wanted to eliminate the entire Jewish race, and he was one party with the king away from doing it. But I mean, it's you're right. It's not anything new.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's it for this episode of the False Light Podcast. Big thanks to Donnie Discerned for helping us unpack the rising hostility toward Jerusalem and what that really means. If this sparks something in you, share it. Send it to a friend, post it up, or drop it in a chat. Someone needs to hear this. And make sure to follow the show so you don't miss what's next. Stay in the Word, stay grounded, and keep your eyes open.